Hello. For the first time, Turkey has officially revealed the gruesome details of what exactly happened to the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Turkey's chief prosecutor, Irfan Fidan, says Khashoggi was strangled to death as soon as he entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October the 2nd. Fidan says the journalist's body was then dismembered and disposed of. A spokesman for Turkey's ruling party say Khashoggi could not have been killed without orders from senior officials. Turkish investigators are still searching for his remains. Well, the announcement followed talks with Saudi Arabia's chief prosecutor. Saud al-Mujib has now left Turkey after 3 days in Istanbul. Turkey says no concrete results came from meeting al-Mujib, who refused to answer questions about where Khashoggi's body is. We'll get reaction from the White House with our correspondent Kimberly Halkett in a moment. But first to Hashim Al-Bahar for the latest on the investigation in Istanbul. So, Hashim, more graphic information emerging of the journalist's death.
Lauren, quite interesting to see that strong statement from the Turkish chief prosecutor at the same moment where the Saudi chief prosecutor was on his way to the airport to travel back to Saudi Arabia. It was a clear message that the Turkish government is losing faith in the fact that they would get more cooperation from the Saudis. This is why they went for that statement, which was for the first time establishing official account of the final moments of Jamal Khashoggi when he entered in the building that you can see behind me, the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. And they say that as soon as he entered, he was strangled to death, his body dismembered, and that the killing was planned. Now, they have been trying for the last 3 days to convince the Saudi chief prosecutor, Saud bin Abdullah al-Mujib, to come out candidly about few issues, particularly when it comes to who gave the order to kill Khashoggi and the testimonies of the 18 suspects detained in Saudi Arabia, plus the local collaborator. The Turkish authorities say that each time al-Mujib was evasive, trying to stay away from giving them some very clear answers. And then on his last day here in Turkey, he said he invited Turkish investigators to travel to Saudi Arabia, meet with their counterparts, and then take it another step forward. To the Turkish government, this was an indication that this is it, that the Saudis are not really genuine about a joint investigation, and this is something which is definitely going to further escalate tension between Turkey and Saudi Arabia.
And Hashim, you mentioned briefly there the reports of the Turkish collaborator. What's changed on the narrative on that?
So basically, the Turkish investigators were trying to push the Saudis to identify or reveal the identity of the local collaborator. And each time they were told, let's give it some time, until when the Saudi chief prosecutor arrived. At the end of his journey, he was hinting that he had no knowledge about the local collaborator, and this means many things. It could be that this name was just used as a smoke screen to try to deflect attention from any possible lead. But as far as the Turkish government, the search is still underway. They're going through all possible scenarios to try to establish the whereabouts of the remains, because, as you know, Lauren, they remain the most crucial aspect of the whole investigation. The moment you have the remains of the dismembered body, you could go forward with a solid indictment that would put more pressure on the Saudis, and they know that if they cannot find the body, it will be extremely difficult for them to press ahead unless they have other strong evidences. And I have to remind our viewers that the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said about a few days ago that Turkey still holds crucial elements they will use when time comes.
Hashim Al-Bahar, thank you very much indeed. Let's go live now to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, has there been any reaction from the Trump administration to the prosecutor's comments?
Yeah, not directly, but the State Department has sent out a press release, or actually a transcript of an interview that the Secretary of State has recently done, Mike Pompeo. And in it, he was directly asked about the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. And he says that the killing, in the United States' view, violates norms of international law. There are still many unanswered questions, and the United States has asked both the Turkish authorities as well as the Saudis to develop the facts, and then the United States will make its own decision. He goes on, though, then to say that as the United States continues to try and ensure there is accountability in this murder, he suggests that it is important to remember the U.S.-Saudi relationship. In other words, a strategic partnership in the eyes of the United States, particularly when it comes to military and commercial interests. So in all, it seems that the United States continues to maintain the position. It wants to get to the bottom of this. It wants accountability, but it is also considering many factors in its response.
And we saw Congress questioning the Saudi account weeks ago. Why has there been no legislation to move ahead with sanctions?
Yeah, it really comes down to the timeline. And the other question is, why hasn't the CIA director gone and briefed the House or Senate Intelligence Committees, which typically we might see by now? In essence, the reason for all of this has to do with the U.S. election that is on Tuesday, where voters will decide on which party controls the next U.S. Congress in session, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. The members are focused on campaigning right now, and that's why we've seen a bit of a stall in what they say has been a tipping point with regards to this case. So it's more likely that we're going to see in the next session of Congress some sort of legislation. We are hearing that that is still a priority for members of Congress, and it's still a priority for the White House, according to the press secretary, who this week said, in fact, early on Monday, said that the White House is still weighing its options in terms of moving forward.
Kimberly Halkett, thank you very much.